Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Locks, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor and Konner.
Greetings and welcome.
This is where you're supposed to be, people. A major went down with major drama, per usual. Actually, not even per usual. I don't even know if I've ever said that word before.
I'm sure you have.
Surely, yeah. But
definitely
I
have.
mean,
Per chance.
I've heard you say that.
there is so much to talk through, so buckle up. Hopefully, if you're in a car, you already are. If
You
not,
better
what are you
be.
doing? Do you not care about your safety? Buckle up. We're going to hold your hand right through all of this. We'll have some fun Trevor's trivia. We'll update the Manufacturers Cup. We'll do the Pick'em versus the luckiest podcast of all time, known as Tour Life.
For real.
And then, we might get to our top 10, but don't count on it.
Here we go again.
Don't even
I
think
wouldn't
about
think
it.
about counting on
Don't
it.
even think about it. But first, quick word from our sponsors. To kick things off, let me let you know about our Patreon, also known as the Heiser Club. Can I just ask y'all a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
When y'all are sitting here and I have to do ad reads, do y'all get a little bored sometimes?
Yeah.
Do you ever wish,
every time.
Depends if you say
man,
something
Hunter,
silly.
I wish there was a way that I could just listen to this podcast without any ad reads, without any mid-rolls on YouTube, without any, mid-rolls on audio.
I think that
You might be wishing it right now.
usually whenever you say it, I just skip through it.
Yeah. Well, there is a place. It's called patreon.com/Foundation Disc Golf. And
You're joking
no matter
me.
what tier you're on, you
Shut
can
up.
get access to ad-free Grip Locked. We upload the audio to there each and every week. It can sync into your Apple Podcast, so you can still just go to your normal podcast player and listen to Grip Locked the way you always do. Not to mention, you also get access to exclusive content, a weekly bonus podcast. I'm about to post my In the Bag on there this week.
Ooh.
And at the higher tiers, you also unlock access to the Heiser Club store and discounts at foundationdisc.com. So there is so many benefits that I haven't even gone into. So go to patreon.com/Foundation Disc Golf today and learn about everything you're missing out on with our multiple different tiers to become a part of the Heiser Club.
It's just entering a virtual friend group.
Yeah.
More or less.
You're just going to be a part of our buddies.
We know a lot of their names.
We do.
Well, today's episode is also brought to you by Gooder.
Oh.
Our friends at Gooder. This is an ad I'm always happy to do because we love Gooder. Let me tell you why. They are our preferred shade, the only shade for disc golf here at Foundation, because they are lightweight. They are fully polarized. They come in tons of different styles and colors. Konner even has the blue light ones over there somewhere.
I do. I have so many Gooder boxes on my desk.
And all those features come in starting at just $25.
What?
They're not going to break the bank. You're going to have an awesome pair of sunglasses. Listen, it's beach season coming up here. I'm going to the beach in a few weeks. I'm going to be rocking multiple pairs of Gooders.
At the same time.
At the same time, potentially.
I've got a pair in my wife's car, and I've got a pair in my car.
They're great sunglasses.
I'm always ready.
They got something for everybody, too. If you like a loud sunglass, if you like something that's just classic, just all black, they've got that, too. And like I said, all these different frames to fit your different face sizes. They're lightweight. They're fantastic sunglasses, and they're going to be great on the course as well. If you want to check these out, you can go to gooder.com/foundation. That's GOODR.com/foundation. Use code foundation, and you're going to get free shipping on that first pair of Gooders. These things also come with a 30-day return policy and a 1-year warranty, so your purchase is protected. That's gooder.com, GOODR.com/foundation. Use code foundation to get free shipping on that first pair. You're going to love them.
I can't find anything wrong with them. They're good, they're
awesome.
cool, and they're cheap.
They rock.
Well, they're gooder.
They're gooder, they're cooler, and they're cheaper.
They're the best.
There you go.
We love Gooder.
All right. Champions Cup went down.
Let's
out
dig in, baby. Get your
Stockton,
shovels out.
California. We had on
Pirate Island.
We'll start on the FPO side. We had Missy Gannon taking it down, Kristen Lott coming in second, and Paige Pierce coming in third.
Who?
Wow.
Yeah, wild stuff. We'll talk through all of it. So let's first talk Missy Gannon here, because after Missy, there's some storylines that I'm sure a lot of you are here for that are going to get a lot of time, and I don't want to gloss over or skip past what Missy Gannon did, because what's important here is none of this had anything to do with Missy. She did exactly what she should do. She played disc golf, and she won.
Yeah.
So this is really the performance we have been waiting for from Missy this year. And I think it's fitting that Big Money Missy showed up yet again when there's a lot on the line. I think she ended up taking home a little, I think it was $11,000 if I'm not mistaken.
That's a lot of grand.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
grands.
Big Money Missy doesn't mess around when there's big money on
She
the big
likes to
line.
collect only a
Wow,
few
huh?
paychecks throughout the year and just big ones.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, she does.
Yeah.
To be fair, she collects a lot
She
of
collects
paychecks.
a lot of paychecks.
She likes to get the bulk of her income in just a couple events. I'd like to say it that
Yeah.
way.
So this is her first podium finish of the year. Happened to just be another major win on her resume. She played very solid all weekend. She led the field in birdie percentage, bogey percentage, and double bogey percentage, which that right there typically leads you to a win.
Yeah, especially in these conditions.
Very rarely does it not. She also led on strokes gained putting, not to mention she also led all of the players in contention in Circle 1 putting. So she didn't lead the field in Circle 1 putting, but everyone that was around her, she was the best Circle 1 putter as well.
Because I think that Kristin obviously had some putting woes going on throughout the tournament, especially when it mattered. And Paige was deadly from C2 there for a while, but wasn't awesome inside the circle. The wind was obviously just a huge factor. And Missy, throws, it's a kind of a wobbly putt, but she does spin it. Like, she is a kind of a spin putter, and she threw her putts with conviction and was really going at the basket. And I think that's what it came down to, is like, you didn't see timid putting out of Missy very often. And so she was making a lot of putts that shocked me. I was very surprised. Some of her confident edge of C1 makes I was really, really impressed with. And yeah, she played her game out there, kept the disc in play. This is a course you had to navigate carefully. And I think that she was just on with the throws. But then, you said it there. If Missy Gannon leads the field in strokes gained putting, I don't know if she's ever going to lose, because she's always going to be, competent throwing the disc. So it was really, really a great tournament for her, and great way to kind of jumpstart your season when it starts out a little slow.
Yeah. So after round 1, she was 5 back of the lead. After round 2, she was 3 back of the lead. But then after round 3, she had a 3-stroke lead. This is when she scorched the course. She shot 10 under on a harder layout, really. Yeah. That was the hot round by 3 strokes that day. And then she went on to win by 2, fending off a chasing Kristin and a chasing Paige Pierce.
Well, the more shots you have to throw between you, now in this tournament she also was great at putting, but like a lot of times it's like the more shots you have to throw to get to the basket, especially on a course where it's low ceiling, so it's not like you can just chew off a ton like that. That just works out perfect for Missy, because the distance players aren't going to gain a huge advantage with the low ceiling, and you're gonna have to throw multiple shots on most of those holes to get in position to score. So yeah, I think it was just a perfect storm for her.
I think really I didn't give enough credit to the low ceiling.
Oh my gosh, neither did I. Oh my gosh.
Because when I was doing predictions, I was thinking a lot about Holland Hanley and Ella Hansen, because when you look at the length of this course and you just look at the maps of this course, it should have been the Holland and Ella show, but then when you actually watch the FPO layout of this course, it's just so hard to actually have that advantage distance-wise.
This course would be the biggest nightmare ever for our tree chip when we play chip locked.
Oh yeah,
because there's like every shot is brushing the tree limbs or the leaves in some way.
Or are they limbs or are they leaves?
Exactly. That's the hardest part.
Tough to say.
Hardest part.
Tough to say.
Final round, Missy came out the gates quickly and extended her lead to 6 over Kristin and 5 over Paige, only to watch Kristin slowly cut it down to 1 stroke heading into 16.
Paige was kind of chewing it up a little bit too.
Paige was. Eagle. Well, especially that throw-in eagle, but then she just couldn't keep it together after, which we'll talk about Paige in a second. And then 16 is when the controversy happened that we'll talk about now. And then Missy, though, was able to maintain composure, play smart golf on the last 2, even what looked like possibly I don't know if this is actually an intentional OB shot.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it was very close. It was a very intentional, I'm missing left if I miss shot, which was the smartest thing to do because she could afford the OB shot on 18 to be able to lay up and walk in the win. So congrats to Missy Gannon.
Great win.
Obviously, now we can talk through what went down on 16 that took over social media as far as the attention goes, which is a real bummer for Missy, to be honest, because like I said, she didn't have any control over this. She wouldn't. I don't
think she's taking it too difficult,
Well, no. Well, I saw some people. Let's talk through Kristin first. Just remind me to come back to Missy's response, because I saw some people coming after Missy, and I wanna point something out that I think is a very important thing here.
Okay.
So, all right. So back to hole 16 we go. Kristin has now cut it back to within 1. Momentum is completely on her side. She throws a not great tee shot to where she's not really in position to birdie per se, but it's in a fine spot and should definitely make par, which would end up keeping pace with Missy. So she throws her second shot, slips a little bit, kicks the disc, basically simultaneous with her release, and right before the camera cuts away,
probably 5
inches. Yeah, not much.
No more than 5 or 6 inches.
Okay. As the camera is about to cut away, the commentators pick up that like something is said to Missy from off camera. So we didn't quite get what happened, but Ian and everyone was like, "What? We need to go back. What is going on with Kristin? Sorry, not Missy, Kristin."
Okay.
Something said to Kristin off camera. So what this was a PDGA marshal stepped in and called a foot fault on Kristin on that slip. Now, the slip itself, they replayed in slow motion. We've now looked at it frame by frame. And when you go frame by frame, there is basically one frame that separates her disc releasing and her kicking the disc.
Yeah.
So it is basically by one frame on a super slow-mo, technically probably a foot fault. But you have to go super slow, making it too close to call in real time when you can't use video evidence. That's important that you can't use video evidence. So this is like real time watching it. It's just too close to call at any point in the tournament. And we saw Paige Pierce have a very similar situation the day before where there was no call made.
Yeah.
I also think that's too close to call. I'm on the agreement that no call should be made there. We've seen plenty of other players. It just happens. Kristen planted behind her lie where she should have. She slipped. She bumped the disc. In a crucial moment, the PDGA marshal walks in, calls a foot fault, and injected himself into what should have been a very great historic battle in the PDGA major. Now, Kristin calls her card over, but it doesn't matter because unlike if a card mate calls it, a PDGA marshal doesn't need to be seconded. So this is just an instant stroke penalty on Kristin.
Wow.
Kristin's obviously very frustrated with the call. She tries to kind of remove herself from the situation and refocus on what's ahead, but is clearly frazzled. So she goes on to par 17, and then 18 she has to try to throw in to put pressure on Missy, which that ends up going OB, which leads to her par. So she ends up losing by 2, but if this didn't happen and Kristin is still back 1 going into 17, which how she was playing up to that point, we now have no clue what would have happened on 17 and 18.
She obviously probably wouldn't have ran that.
She definitely wouldn't have ran it on 18, so that would have at least been a birdie, but then you have to question, like, well, would Missy have played nearly as safe?
It's definitely...
Now there's just all these questions around 17 and 18 that shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
If this hadn't happened.
I think it's at least a relief that she was down by 1. I think if it was a tie or a lead, it would have been really bad. It's still not good. Here's the big issue because, like, I agree, terrible call. You can't make that call. Like, such a bad call to make. However, here's the deeper lying issue is we have been calling for marshals and like this kind of situation to happen, and the problem is, what are the marshals being communicated with? Like, are they, do they even have it's not like these guys have been reffing for 20 years in the NBA and they know, well, that's just a foul you probably wouldn't call in the playoffs in Game 7. Like, there is a lot of nuance to calling things in sports, and especially in golf, it gets a little different because I think it's supposed to be more black and white than a contact sport like hockey, for example. If they're in overtime in the playoffs in hockey right now, it takes a lot for them to call a penalty because they just want to let it play out. That's kind of what the fans want. That's what everybody wants. So in golf, it is typically a little more black and white, but foot faulting is one of the least black and white rules ever because it is so minute. Kicking the disc historically is not called, just like it wasn't on Paige when she booted the disc a lot further. And you're already dealing with an interesting rule because you're not gaining an advantage in this situation, and you're allowed to mark your disc ahead.
Exactly.
So you in a different rule, you own that space anyway. So it's crazy to call, but I feel bad in a sense for the marshal because like he really was just calling a rule that was broken. Like by the rule book, it was broken. He called it. I wish he would have.
I don't think he knew it was broken. As we'll get into Kristin's response to what he said to her.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Kristin's response yet. But it doesn't matter if he knew or not. He called a rule that was broken. So his call on the field was correct by the real rule book. Agree?
I don't think there was any way he could have seen it. I think if you go frame by frame, it is probably technically a foot fault.
So it was correct.
Technically.
Yes, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But the PDGA is very big spirit of the game, essence of the rule, and I think when you go to that, no, not broken.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying, like, by the rule that's in the book on foot faults, that is a foot fault. So, but like I said, I do not think that makes the call a good call. I'm just saying, like, it does put everything in a tough situation because now, hopefully, what this situation leads to is a launching into A, the rules, and B, the marshals discussing, like, does there have to be nuance to rule calling, or can we just rewrite this rule in a way that doesn't give another situation like this? Because, like I said, the foot fault rule has always been so... It's one thing when you're behind your lie and you can ask your card mates or even a marshal and be like, is this legal before you throw? But this, when you're dealing with the plant situation, everybody that's played disc golf knows, unless somebody's planning way off to the side or way behind a disc to where it's like they got around an obstacle they shouldn't have, you just never call it. So it is crazy that it was even in the front of the marshal's mind to think about making a call, like to be looking at the disc. That's what's weird to me is like that wouldn't even cross my brain to think about making a call.
What's funny is as Kristin is complaining or talking to the marshal, we have Missy Gannon plant about a foot left of her shot, her lie, at the exact same time.
All right, as I said, nobody.
But again, no real advantage was gained there. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
But okay, let me back up. Because I have always been, and am still, an advocate for there being marshals on the ground. And so people on social media were confused by me being so upset at this. Because this is not what I was advocating for. What I'm advocating for when marshals are on the ground is for crucial time violations where it's a very black and white. Like the Nico Castro one of the European Open. I think that is a great use of a marshal where I have you on a stopwatch, time violation, here you go. He's managing pace of play. He put the whole card on top, blah, blah, blah. Courtesy violations. That's another one where it's something that, player yells an expletive or slams the chains or whatever. That's a great time for a marshal to step in because now he can stand between the player and the card and be the bad guy a little bit in that type of situation. Questionable OB calls, like the one at Adam James at Waco. A marshal would have been a perfect person there to have been able to step in and be like, hey, this is OB.
And I also...
Or at least have another opinion. Those are the type of things where... Or there's just a questionable call in general when a player's like, hey, this player's been doing something foot fault wise that I want you to watch her.
I'll say, do you feel like with the marshals, like especially with the OB, should it just be something where they are watching? So okay, I saw what it looks like a foot fault, but they're only bringing it up if the other players in the card, or should they be able to step in?
I think with a foot fault, I think it's similar to an OB call or something where like a marshal being on a card, I think is a great thing because they can have an unbiased set of eyes to step in and help assist with the call. But stepping in like this, again, if Kristin had been 4 feet or 2 feet or whatever left of her lie and she gains an advantage, I'm never upset at a marshal for that call.
Yeah.
Because there is a clear breaking of the rule.
Yeah.
But here...
It takes a lot to make a foot fault.
There's not, like, if you're watching it real time, there's not a clear breaking of the rule.
Yeah.
Because if you go frame by frame, pretty much every single step puts a foot fault.
Yeah.
If you go frame by frame, so many throws are foot faults.
The disc moving is the only thing he saw, for sure.
You can't, but the disc is allowed to move post-release.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part here, is if the disc is allowed to move post-release,
that is the crazy thing.
You have to know that this disc was not released, which the marshal himself, according to Kristin's report, does not know. in Kristin's response,
what happened? Like, what happened to this guy?
I think he'd been staring at people's feet all weekend, waiting to be able to make that call, and then got the opportunity.
Because then he would have had the opportunity.
Read this statement.
Many times.
That's true.
Because I haven't seen the statement.
So, I want to read just this middle part while we're talking about, because this is in the midst of it. She said, when I asked the marshal if he was 100% sure the disc was still in my hand when it moved, his answer was he couldn't focus on two things at once and couldn't see, but he's 100% comfortable giving me a penalty stroke. Which is funny and sad at the same time, but above all, this response was concerning to me because it seemed to reflect a misunderstanding of the rule. You do have to see both things, which is frustrating when such a significant decision is being made alone. So that's my thing is, he didn't make the right call because he didn't see it.
I would say, I think he
got blindly lucky.
Well, what's being got at, I agree. Well, because what's being got at here is he saw the disc get kicked, made the call, and then probably realized afterwards the whole release thing, because I don't think most people would even recall that until this conversation started. I had kind of even forgotten that myself. But yeah, man, I just like, what makes you like, unless you are the biggest Missy Gannon fan of all time, Paige didn't get the call. Maybe there's a discraft tie here.
Well, I don't even know if the marshal was around, but I think that's the other frustrating part is you have players all weekend doing this with no call being had. I explained it to my wife because my wife was like, because it's similar to, it's not exactly the same, but it's similar to in basketball. If all game you're letting players play a little bit,
and
right?
then you just turn on the whistle.
It's all like you're letting, if it's a little tacky foul on the arm, stuff like that, that's being let go all weekend, all game long for the first 3 quarters into the final like few minutes, and then out of nowhere, game-winning shot. Or a really crucial shot with like 2 minutes left, the same thing happens, and out of nowhere the ref calls it.
Yeah.
It's like, was that technically a foul? Yes. But the precedent that had been set the rest of the tournament was, this isn't.
Well, the precedent has been set the rest of forever.
Eternity.
Yeah, I was saying, like, this is
happens and it's not.
Groundbreaking in disc golf.
Like, this happens and it's not. So even if it technically is, making the call here is wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, now we're opening up a can of worms where there's video evidence of Missy Gannon at the exact same time foot faulting. There's video evidence of Paige Pierce foot faulting. I'm sure we can go back and watch video evidence of different step putts and jump putts where, oh no, frame by frame, the same thing I have to do here, frame by frame, those players' feet are off the ground before they release the putt. foot fault.
The foot fault
and it's
thing.
Like to me, what you have to understand about the foot fault rule, if you're gonna call it, is it's should be when a player is gaining a distinct advantage. That's not written in the rule book, but like that's how it should be. When Ken Climo called on Scott Stokely in that viral video over and over, Stokely was, for the first few, a solid 2 feet behind and to the left of his disc.
Throwing over a tree.
So it gave him a distinct advantage. That's a call. You have to make it. If it's a straddle putt and I'm getting farther back to get farther away from the tree, or a little bit left or a little bit right, that's a distinct advantage. You have to call it. In this situation, Kristin was at a disadvantage. She slipped.
Yeah, that's the best.
That's the thing. Is she didn't foot fault until she slipped. So she's already at a disadvantage, and then you're stroking her for the ground not being perfect and giving out on her? Like, what are we doing there?
Shoes.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right now.
Like that's ludicrous to me. And now you're not only hurting Kristin, you're hurting the fans, you're hurting the perception of the PDGA, and you're hurting Missy, because now her title that she won fair and square is having a question mark put on it. So now you're hurting everyone because you just decided to jump in and call 1 foot fault. Because that's the other thing is how many, I can count 3 Marshall calls all time.
Yeah,
I can count a Gannon Burr time violation.
Yeah.
I can count a Nico LaCastro European Open time violation. And then I can count this Kristen Lott foot fault.
Yeah, very interesting time to get involved.
And I'm like, what are we doing there? If we're gonna do it, let's be consistent.
It's very bizarre. I'd be curious to know if this guy releases a statement and like if it's something along the lines of like, I regret it, or I double down and I stand by my call.
Well, I don't think this is on him to release a statement. This is where
No, I don't know
skip
if it's
ahead
on
here.
him. I'm just curious if he does.
This is a very good situation and a very good opportunity for the PDGA to act differently than they have historically. In my opinion, the PDGA needs to make a statement, if they haven't already by the time this podcast comes out, because obviously we filmed this a little earlier than it releases. They need to make a statement where there's a public situation. So I think they need to publicly apologize for Kristin. Whether they think it's the right call and they back it up or not, you got to apologize to Kristin there.
There's no way they're going to do that.
And I think they need to launch an investigation into this situation. Whatever that means, it doesn't matter. The wording of it, where at least they talk to the guy and make sure there wasn't some weird Missy Gannon bias going on or something. They launch that, and then they say we're going to look at the foot fault rule and at the Marshall rule and how they call things to make sure, like, maybe the Marshall should have to be seconded.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
To make sure, I agree it's probably not going to happen, but that's why the PDGA has the reputation they have, because when we look back historically, Brody buying out the driving range, Paige Pierce complaining about the USWDGC, when this happens and a player stands in opposition to the PDGA historically either turns a blind eye or says it's a jerk move by the player and comes after the player, farther separating them from the player, and in doing so, farther separating them from the fans. This is a great opportunity to have some transparency, take ownership, because what the PDGA might also do is say, the PDGA didn't mess up, the Marshall messed up.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and it's like, that's crazy. No, the PDGA messed up. The Marshall is a representative of the PDGA, whether he's on staff or a volunteer, and the PDGA messed up here. The PDGA has to take ownership of that mistake. That's all the fans want, is transparency from the PDGA. You're allowed to mess up, but you got to own your mistakes and learn from them, which the PDGA historically has never done. And that's what creates this animosity against them, where the players, the fans, all this have a certain feeling. Because the Pro Tour historically, at least from my eyes, they're very in touch with the players. And when the Pro Tour messes up, they talk directly to the players. They get feedback. And that's why generally there's a little bit of a nicer relationship between player and DGPT than there is between player and the PDGA. This is a perfect example of a time when the PDGA needs to publicly apologize to Kristin and take action to figure out, there might be nothing to do about the situation, but at least publicly be like, we're looking into it. We're going to try our best to figure out a resolution. We're going to work with Kristin. We're going to work with the Marshall. Congrats to Missy Gannon. I'm sorry this is how this has happened for Kristin. We're going to look into it. That would go a long way with the public. Historically, I have reason to believe the PDGA will never do that because they haven't historically, but I do think that has to be done.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the public would perceive it, because it is like the NBA now, they do a refs report, like they mandatory at the end of games, and they will literally like say, we messed up this call, we missed this call. And that just makes people more mad, because then they're like, oh, so you're literally going to tell us you missed the call and you're still not going to be able to do anything about it? Like, so.
But I think that's different than what
I agree.
I'm more
this is different
because
this is more of a
how
like,
can we make sure it doesn't happen again?
Sure.
Because now this opens up to, when we're in Europe and you have a European marshal, who's to say that they aren't all of a sudden biased and they start calling foot faults on Paige Pierce down the stretch when she's going against Kristin at Worlds?
If that happened in Europe, it'd be so crazy.
Or now there's betting involved.
There's an arms race.
Now there's betting involved. It gets even more serious.
That's what the PDGA
the next point.
is very, very lucky.
So lucky
that there wasn't betting at this event, because I think, from my understanding, this is just the one major that's not going to have it.
It is literally the only one.
And Kristin would have been the favorite. There would have been so many people with money on Kristin.
Oh my gosh!
And you're going to try to, because look, let's look at this. Let's look at this.
At least the good news is the max bet, at least on, I don't know.
On DraftKings, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
you're just betting odds to win.
Yeah.
But we're just, because realistically, Missy Gannon probably would have won this tournament. Mm-hmm. Realistically, I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Tell that's my $10,000 money line bet.
Well, that's the thing, is if you all of a sudden have someone with $50 on a Kristin Lott money line, and this happens, that guy is 100% coming out of the PDGA. Because now you just cost me $50.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, DraftKings is going to be getting emails left and right of, you better refund this. There's collusion going on. And now, do you really? They're so lucky.
Now that Marshall needs a security team.
It could have been very ugly.
Well, that's the other thing that's crazy, is apparently after the Marshal made that call, he just dipped. He was gone. Like, there's someone who said that he wasn't with the card the rest of the
Imagine he
holes.
wasn't actually a marshal. What if
no,
that story
he was.
came out?
And that's the other thing, is he's been consistently with the PDGA. I recognize him. I forget his name. And I also, people who know him, I think, will probably defend him. I'm not questioning. I'm sure this dude has done a ton for our sport. I'm sure he's a great person. I'm sure he's a great representative. I'm sure he just had a lapse of judgment. But that's what I'm saying, is it's on the PDGA to make sure this isn't able to happen again. Because he probably was unbiased. He probably was trying to do the right thing. He probably did everything right.
What does keep it from happening again, though? Like, if a marshal makes a bad call. I think
making it where they have to be seconded. That's a really easy first thing.
There's a lot of people that need to be around. By a player?
By a player. Oh, okay. So a marshal is just another official on the card. So I think the marshal can second a call. Yeah. And I think that if you make it where the marshal also has to be seconded, boom. That already, now there's checks and balances, because now at least if he calls it, it's similar to where someone else has to confirm. Would we have
a different conversation? Let's say, there's food for thought. Let's say that James OB that everybody agreed was out of bounds. Let's say the marshal was there, had called it OB, but all of James' card mates just don't want to do it, and so they don't second it. Would we be having a different conversation saying marshals need to have absolute power? If that
I don't think that would have happened,
because we saw it. We all saw it. It's out of bounds.
It felt like the card mates were uncomfortable, because they would have had to be the one to say, I think that's OB.
I would agree, but I'm just saying, like,
versus if the marshal's there and says, this is OB, and here's my evidence of why I think this is OB. It only would take one card mate to be like, I think that makes a lot of sense.
You're right, but what if it didn't? That's what I'm saying. Like, is this a situation where it's very pick and choose?
We're a self-officiated sport. Not even every card has a marshal.
Yeah.
So that's to me, we're like,
that's fair.
I just don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, there's probably, listen, with rules in golf, it's really the same with traditional golf as well. I don't think there is a perfect solution.
Because the other thing we have to look at too is tournament directors can act as marshals, and tournament directors get a ton of funding from manufacturers, like for certain events.
Yeah.
So who's to say that all of a sudden you have a player, or you have this situation going on, and you're a tournament director who is best buds with Konner, name a random manufacturer?
Name MVP.
MVP.
They presented this event. Very good pick.
MVP, Simon's in contention. The tournament director got all of his added cash from there. There's a bunch of Simon fans there, and there's a pressure to make a call.
And he loves Simon.
And he walks up. He's going to see it with biased eyes. He can try to be as unbiased as possible. So, like that, I think that having it where there's checks and balances there where they have to be seconded is a great start.
Yeah.
And I think that's something very easy where the PDGA could implement it tomorrow. Everyone's like, okay, at least they looked and learned from it.
I don't hate that idea.
Very hard to not be biased with that situation.
Well, there is no such thing as no bias. Everybody has bias, to be clear.
Now, and I don't think this was. I don't think this was a situation where this guy really wanted Missy to win.
I don't think so either.
I'm not saying. But it could happen.
Sure.
And now that we've seen it, we can see how much power marshals can have.
You watch enough
and that
Premier
is something
League soccer, you'll see bias.
That is something where you do have to now say, what can we do to prevent this from happening if there is a case of bias?
Yeah.
Because what if this clearly wasn't a foot fault? He could do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And say, foot fault. No, I don't care. I don't care if I didn't see it. I'm 100% confident. And there was nothing that could be done.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is like he in this situation admitted that he wasn't 100% sure the disc was still in her hand. He got kind of lucky it was.
And then just be like every other sport.
And then it's just like now the marshal has full control. He can just walk up and be like, Oh, Paul Macbeth down 3 with 4 to go. Sorry, Gannon, foot fault.
Well,
Sorry, Gannon, foot fault.
That's what every other sport does.
But that's what I'm saying is golf's supposed to be self-officiated, because then you also have that going on lead card. And what if on chase card there is egregious foot fault going on and no one's calling it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Marshall. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like the marshals aren't everywhere. And in other sports, if someone is at least you got 3 refs and they're all watching every play of the game and whatever.
Yeah.
Here you got one guy floating around, maybe 2 or 3 guys, but they're not on every card.
It is crazy that foot faulting is and has always been so gray and never called. And it seemed like the one thing we didn't really have to worry about. Like, it's always just been OB, right? Like OB and time, but mostly OB are the ones that typically that could change a tournament. Mm-hmm. And bringing foot faults into play, it's like you've just started something. Because nobody was thinking about foot faults, talking about foot faults. You're watching on coverage, you're not staring at their feet. It just wasn't really in the spotlight. Nobody was taking advantage of it. And now all of a sudden, it's all anybody's gonna be looking at and talking about is foot faults, and it's like, oh no.
Well, and I don't think that it necessarily I don't think the fix is for every single card to necessarily. I don't think it has to be every card having a marshal that's always watching. I think it's okay for there to just be one marshal. I think that this was a bad call and this shouldn't happen. But it's kind of the idea of everybody who's speeding on the road doesn't get a speeding ticket because there's not a cop for every car that's going down the road. But the idea that that at any second there could be a cop around the corner keeps everybody for the most part from speeding. So it's kind of the same thing. You know that at any point a marshal could be walking up on your card, so you're always just kind of making sure that you're not doing stuff that's sketchy.
I don't hate the idea of there being a marshal with lead card, because that's where the most crucial calls are going to be. This is just they just have too much power.
Yeah,
because they just have way too much power.
That's funny. I like the whole marshal power narrative. I don't disagree. I just
that's
think
what I'm saying. It's now
we got to take the power from the marshals.
Well, now we've just opened up a whole can of worms. Where I always just expected the marshal was hey, Drew Gibson is cyberbullying Cupcake Curtis about taking too long on a putt, and he's like, hey, Marshall, get over here. You got to make this call. And now the Marshall's got Cupcake on a clock, right? That's how I always viewed marshals being used, because that makes perfect sense to me. It's a player's look, it's going to cause a lot of weird stuff. Can you come over here and just put him on the clock and go, or, hey, we have this OB call. We can't really decide. Can you come in and make the final say on it? Where we're split, we can't. And that makes perfect sense to me. Yep. But just foot fault, instant stroke, sorry, nothing you can do.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous.
That might be crazy. The thing about this, butterfly effect, 2 years from now, no more run-ups in the fairway. All standstills.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
So this is Kristen.
You can still slip on standstills, though.
It's true.
This is because the other thing.
Let's regulate the ground, guys.
Let's
regulate the turf.
Trevor mentioned it, and I don't want to overlook it. Is we mark the disc in front.
I know.
So
funny.
That's the crazy thing to me is Kristin was at a disadvantage if she would have marked it.
She occupied space with her slip that she could have had if she wanted.
That's not but that's the other thing that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Is I've always disagreed. Why do we mark the disc in front? We can't stand there.
Yeah.
With before, so why do we mark it in front? That doesn't make sense to me. We should mark it behind. But since we do mark it in front, then when you look at it from that perspective, this foot fault call makes even less sense.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing too. Yeah, whenever you don't,
except for whenever you mark it, you don't have 2 sheets of paper. You still just have the one.
Yeah, but a sheet of paper is longer than a disc.
That's true.
It's true. Good point.
So it's just that's the wild thing to me is if Kristin marks her disc, this is not even a problem. It's crazy.
And that's just another part of disc golf ruling that is just kind of bizarre. It's why is it there should just. It's weird that to give the flexibility there, why isn't there a rule where you just have to mark from the back of the disc or from the front of the disc, or you're not, or there is no marking? It is weird that they give you this little flexibility, and I think that the whole rule with the whole piece of paper and all this, they're writing the rule to give flexibility to the player because they know it's an imprecise thing to run up behind a disc, and so it's the most spirit of the rules, I agree, thing to make such a minute call there.
Yeah, why don't we just say agrees you can't, no more marking
Not everyone.
discs.
There are some people on Twitter that were just thought that it was ludicrous that anyone would be well, of course that's a foot fault. How are you not calling that a foot fault?
I bet your local league loves
and I'm like,
you.
What are you? You're telling me that
their weekly league loves them.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So this is Kristin's full statement. She said, "Not the first time I found myself at Champions Cup in a controversial situation involving the PDGA." She's referring to, I'll let her say it. 3 years ago, I was told mid-round that my daughter couldn't walk with me, even though she'd be from
that was
from
3
the start.
years ago.
Elaine Snitchgate.
So that was Elaine King, who at that time was operating as a DGN commentator, but was a PDGA board member, called in a call on Kristen's caddy, where her daughter then had to get removed from her bag because I think she was underage to I forget the exact rule. Ludicrous call. That was in 2022.
It was bizarre.
Champions Cup, where Kristen ended up losing on 18. Champions Cup and PDGA Champions Cup and Kristen do not have a good relationship. This time, for the first time in my career, a marshal made a foot fault call independently without any input or complaint from my cards mates. I understand that marshals are doing their job and trying to ensure fair play, which I truly respect, but consistency matters. If you apply rules like this, they should equally apply to everyone on every card at all times. Of course, I would never want to gain an advantage unfairly, but the situation was strange. When I asked the marshal if he was 100% sure the disc was still in my hand when it moved, his answer was that he couldn't focus on two things at once and couldn't see, but he is 100% comfortable giving me a penalty stroke, which is funny and sad at the same time. But above all, this response was concerning to me because it seemed to reflect a misunderstanding of the rule. You do have to see both things, which is frustrating when such significant decisions are being made alone. No previous foot faults had been called in the round, and the timing felt unfortunate just as I had gained momentum and was getting back into contention. That said, I take responsibility for letting it distract me, and I'll use this as fuel to sharpen my game and focus even more moving forward. I know I wasn't the best player out there this week. I made a lot of mistakes on the putting green, and with some approach shots, I'm heading home tomorrow with intention of working through those areas and tightening up my run-ups. Even though you can't, that's funny. Even though you can't always predict things like slipping on the course, I'll focus on what I can control to avoid situations like this in the future. Aside from this, California was great. The giant trees I got to see were magical. All the disc golf fans were awesome. You have a great vibe here, and I'm looking forward to visiting this part of the U.S. again. So I hope to see some beautiful moments from this week.
I would say
very good post.
Yes,
Kristen,
really well worded.
Disc golf doesn't deserve Kristen.
No,
she is such a classy champion. Every time I watch her in a situation, I'm like, how are you the way that you are?
she's like a sport robot.
Like, she wins with class.
She just
she
says
loses,
all the right things.
Yeah,
does
she
all the
loses
right
with
things.
class. She gets wild calls because even when she was like defending herself to the marshal, I was like, I'd be yelling at this dude. Like, are you kidding me? This is a major championships on the line, and she just is like having a conversation with him. And when he's like, look, you can't do anything about it, she just walks away. And I'm like, the stone's on her. Like, how did she? I wish I had that type of self-control. It is crazy. It's crazy.
I don't wish you did. I love it whenever I hear you get worked up about this stuff.
I would have said something pretty snarky.
I was just like tweeting up a storm, and meanwhile, Kristen, who it's actually happening to, is just walking up like, all right, I got to focus on this next shot. I'm like, no,
she's
Kristen.
A professional.
She is a like. That's
she
what I'm
is
saying.
A professional.
Is disc golf?
She's like an AI professional disc golfer.
It is crazy. And okay, so I want to get back to Missy because I saw some people come like upset at Missy that Missy didn't address it in her final speech.
I don't think
what we have to remember is at the time all of this was happening, Missy Gannon was walking up to her lie.
Mm-hmm.
Missy, for all we know, didn't even see the foot fault shot.
Yeah.
But she definitely, like, she got brought into it, like, slightly after. But, like, she probably didn't realize how egregious the situation was until after when she, like, checked and watched footage and saw social media.
It's also not her business. Like, or
so,
it's
like,
not her responsibility.
That's what I'm saying is I don't think, like, had she watched the whole thing go down, might she have said, like, you know, I feel bad for Kristen? Maybe. But, like,
yeah,
she just won again. Missy had no part in this. It's not like Missy was like, hey, Marshall, watch her feet. Missy was just playing her game.
She was winning the tournament, and this tournament took place over 4 rounds.
Yeah,
not over one shot.
Like, Missy did everything that she was supposed to do. Because that's the other thing is, what do you want Missy to do? Like, lay up a putt to give Kristen the stroke back? Like, no, that's not going to happen.
She still had two tough holes to play after that to win the tournament.
No one would want that. I'm sure if you asked
That'd be
Missy,
disgusting.
I'm sure if you asked Missy, Missy would much prefer that this hadn't happened because she probably still would have won.
Yeah.
And now she wouldn't have any questions. So, like,
and she still shouldn't.
And she still shouldn't. And anyone who had the, like, I think it's just going to be always tainted by, like, if you watched it, you always know of, like, man, I wonder what could have happened with Kristen. But that's a shame for Missy. It's similar to when Big Germ won. Well, it's a lot different, but it's similar. I've heard Big Germ say this of when he won USDGC back in 2016. He's always said, I wish I could have played that final round because I think I still would have won.
Whenever people
Drastic
are counting
difference.
up Missy's majors in 5 years, I don't think they talk about this.
But I'm just saying it's a shame for Missy, and I don't think Missy would have wanted this foot fault call to have happened because she would have just wanted to win straight up, where you can't question anything now. So I don't think it's ludicrous that Missy didn't say anything in the post-round interview because like she just won a major.
Yeah.
That was the last thing on her mind, as it should be the last thing on her mind. So the people who are coming after Missy, I think that you're in the wrong there. I think
Jokesters.
That's crazy. Okay, other thing I want to talk about is the Paige Pierce performance out of nowhere. She
Tell me about it, man.
kind of looked like her vintage self for a lot of the tournament. And then, she had this crazy throw in for eagle on, let me see exactly what hole it was. I think it was like 10. Yeah, hole 10. And then after that, she threw some like kind of errant shots on 11 and 12. She got pars, but they weren't the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are holes that she definitely could have birdied. And then she went bogey on 13, 14. That was the real like Paige Pierce is officially out of this thing. Because when she threw in for that eagle, at that time, Kristin hadn't gained the momentum yet. So Kristin birdied that hole, but Paige gained 2 on Missy at that point, and that started to feel like, I tweeted at that point, like, is Paige Pierce really about to win this thing?
She was only 3 back.
That felt like huge momentum swing, but then it just kind of quickly got put out. And at that point was when Kristin started making the run, and then all eyes were on the Kristin-Missy battle because Paige was like, she was a lock for third because Silva just couldn't quite get things together to get back into it, but she was a lock for third, but she wasn't fighting for it. But the podium, I mean, I looked at this earlier when Tour Life picked Paige Pierce out of the blue. I was like, what did they see in her?
Nothing.
She went 11th, 15th, 13th, 28th at Pro Tour events this year.
Yeah. Nothing.
That was the and we just got destroyed by that pick.
Well, what I see from Paige is honestly similar to, there are a few MPO disc golfers you could throw in this category, but it's really just whenever she's playing well, it's still all there. She puts a great move on the disc. Like when she throws some of her backhand shots and some of her putts, like it's like
she's got all the pieces.
She does that
still
at just a high level as anybody. Obviously never had a great forehand, but whoop-de-doo. I mean, we'll get to MPO, but that doesn't matter. So I think all that misses for Paige these days is she's just not consistent, which means she probably just isn't putting the work in. And I think that's what was happening. I think even Paul for a little bit there, he had some injury, but then he had a kid, so like he had some worthwhile distraction. But I think now that he has kind of rounded back into form, he showed a little bit that it was still there. He just kind of had to figure out more consistent play again. I think Eagle coming off his injury had to do a similar thing, just kind of find the consistency again, but the talent was still there. And I think Paige is the same thing, where if she were to really, really go after it, and maybe there's a mental block there too. That happens, I'm sure, we saw some putting struggles at the end of that round where she couldn't really pull it back, but I think everything is still there. Like from a talent standpoint, and we talk about this a lot on debate night, how the whole age thing is like, it's not really the notion with these players because she's only a year older than Kristin. She's still plenty in her athletic prime and able to execute these shots. It really just isn't being able to put it together. That's getting to her.
Yeah. The only real surprises I had.
Fun to watch though. Really fun to watch.
Only other surprises I had, because I fully agree with that on Paige, and we'll just see if she's able to do kind of what Paul's done this year.
She'll probably win a random event this year.
Yeah,
can you time it?
Holland and Ella, I think less Holland because Holland came top 5. Ella Hansen's performance surprised me.
Holland's
I think
first off the podium finish though.
Yeah, but still a great overall solid finish for her. I think we just, like I said, greatly overlooked the low ceilingness of this course.
For sure.
But still, Ella Hansen ended up 7 over for the tournament in 23rd.
That's very surprising.
Which that really shocked me because Holland, not really her weekend, 15 under. She still could have competed out here, I think, and she played fine all weekend. It is what it is. 15 under, came top 5. For Ella to be 7 over, I mean, she lost by 34 strokes.
It's pretty bad
to Missy.
And she's been she's been much more consistent. I don't really, I don't know what's like the outlier stat for her. OB
great
putting,
call.
like
Let's
I'd be curious.
I haven't
to
looked
see,
at her stats
because we didn't see her at all on coverage. So yeah, I don't know, where was she struggling the most.
Ella, let's see, she threw OB 14 times. Which, to give you, like, Missy threw OB 7, Kristin threw OB 4. Yeah. Kristin led the field in OB.
A lot of OB. And probably
let's look at putting. Circle 1X putting was 71%. Circle 2 was 9%.
So didn't make anything from Circle 2.
Her birdie rate was only 21%. Her bogey plus was 25%. Her double bogey plus was 7%.
So she just took big numbers.
She just messed up. Yeah, she just took big numbers. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Because like
surprising,
it's tough. The fairway hit stat on this course is tough because like,
oh my gosh,
basically if you're off the fairway, you're OB.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a like rough. So you can't really look at was she throwing the disc well. But she had a 0% scramble rate, which typically means if you went OB, did you get up and down? To give you some look insight, Missy Gannon had a 43% scramble rate. Kristen Lott had a 60% scramble rate. So other players were getting up and down.
Yeah, in 5 total scramble attempts for the whole.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's
if
like
you didn't throw OB, you weren't scrambling.
You weren't scrambling.
Yeah.
There wasn't scrambles to be had.
And OB on par 4s and 5s for that matter.
All right, now that's FPO. Now that we're 45 minutes in,
A lot
MPO.
to get into with that.
Let's get into MPO. We can't really tell the story of MPO without looking at every round. Konner, have you seen the final score?
I haven't. No.
Okay, then I was hoping that was the case because I just want to ask you a question.
Oh no.
Okay, Paul McBeth.
I knew it was gonna have to do with Paul McBeth whenever you said that.
Paul McBeth shot 14 under round 1.
Okay.
Through hole 10 in round 2. So basically 1.5 rounds into a 4-round event. He was at 20 under par.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think the winning score under par was?
There's 4 rounds.
4 rounds. So there's 2.5 more rounds of golf. Paul's at 20 under. Obviously, you know he didn't win, but where do you think the winning player got to?
Okay. I think that was a really good score, him being 1.5 rounds in, being 20 under. So I'm going to guess like 45.
45 under? Yeah, I mean, that's make reasonable sense because, there's still 2.5 rounds left.
Reasonable. I didn't embarrass myself.
Most people would have guessed high 30s.
Probably would have been high 30s, but
Okay.
yeah, 26 under was where the winner came in. Was where the winner came in. Yeah. So let's just talk through this. So on the preview show, Trevor,
What the heck?
Trevor and I got into this disagreement about who to pick for Pick'em against Tour Life, right? I went to choose Calvin because using stats, he was the best player on this course. Trevor, rightfully so, had some concerns about Calvin's performance in majors. I'm not going to lie to you. After day 1, I was like, what's going to be funny? I'm going to open the show on Grip Block with an apology note to Trevor. Like, that'll be a really funny because after round 1, Paul McBeth was 14 under par. So Trevor wanted to choose Paul because of the hot start he's had this season, and obviously Paul typically finds another gear in majors. We flipped a coin. It landed on Paul. We chose Paul, and we made this bet of whoever beats the other player out, that person's player can't be picked in the top 3.
If they were in the top 10.
If they were in the top 10.
Yeah. Even crazier context for how this went down.
So then what do you know? Paul comes out the gates on fire, 14 under round 1, his highest rated round ever at a major.
Wow.
Has a 3-stroke lead on the field.
14 under was ridiculous.
He continues in round 2, starting off 6 under through 10, putting him at 20 under through the first 28 holes.
This major
Crazy
was like
start.
open and shut at this point.
Then the unthinkable happens, and Paul McBeth proceeds to just never get past 20 under mark. He actually was at 20 under on hole 10 every day the rest of the tournament.
What?
Ended up shooting 5 over for the last 2.5 rounds of the tournament and fell not just out of the top 10, but all the way down to 20th place.
Well, and it's also
Did he
important
get
to
bit
note,
by a king cobra? What happened?
It's also important to note that like even with that, like how drastic it was, because of the stroke advantage he built and because everybody was stalling around 20 under, he was in this tournament halfway into the final round, maybe a little bit further. Like it's not like that collapse led him to a place where he was still in only a stroke or 2 off the lead.
Well, going into round 3, so he was at 20 under through hole 10. He finishes round 3 at 16 under, tied for the lead.
Yeah.
He fell 4 strokes on the back 9, 4 over on the back 8 holes.
Tied with Isaac,
and was tied with Isaac Robinson going to the final round. Meanwhile, just to continue this narrative,
the third round.
Calvin Heimberg's playing terrible. He's in comparison to his expectations.
He should have missed the cut.
He's barely able to make the cut. He's at 8 under. The cut line was 7 under. He barely makes the cut. Out of nowhere, no pressure on the guy. He fires off an insane 12 under final round, launches himself 24 places up the leaderboard into the top 10, and gets to 20 under par. Meaning Calvin was the better pick.
It's such a joke, dude. And well, this is the most Calvin Heimberg. I'm actually so glad that this happened because it's really funny. We get a lot of slack for jumping on narratives and giving them.
We get no slack. We get a lot of flack.
We get a lot of flack for we didn't get no slack. We get flack.
We didn't get no slack. We get
for
flack.
narratives that like exist in disc golf. Maybe sometimes in our brains. Maybe sometimes they're just minute, and we hyperbole them to death. Like we throw, and so like 2 narratives we've always kind of written on. Like in recent time, we've talked about Paul not being able to kind of finish down the stretch, and then also like for a while we've talked about Calvin. Like his like go-to in majors is to come out dead slow and then do that. Like, that's what he does. And it happened to the most extreme fashion.
I think what I wanted to be is just let this serve as a reminder that the final leaderboard doesn't show you the true story. Because we, leading up to this, kept saying Calvin doesn't perform well at majors, and people kept saying, what are you talking about? Look at his performances. Look at his
he
leaderboard.
didn't.
And we were like, you know what? Maybe this is a false narrative. What are we thinking? And then this was my aha moment of, oh, that's what we're thinking, is because you don't see Calvin on coverage all weekend. So you're like, oh, he's not playing well. And then you look back at the leaderboard the next year and you're like, oh, he came in top 10 at Champions Cup.
Yeah, people are going to look at this. It's like, Calvin never had a chance to win this tournament
The
ever.
only time I think he was on coverage was when it was like, is he going to make the cut line or not?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, the guy comes in 8th place.
There's a rumor going around.
I would just like
word on the street is that he was sick first few days.
Maybe.
Oh.
That makes sense.
I would just like to say
statistically
convenient. Yeah, and LeBron had an MCL sprain.
I would just like to say I was
series.
bothered by something that Trevor said when you guys were shooting the preview show.
Oh, okay.
I was sitting here and I heard Trevor's voice. His voice carries
very much
very strongly. So
he really projects.
I project. I've learned how to speak.
I heard you back down from your Calvin doesn't win majors narrative. And I didn't like that.
No, he backed down from his Calvin doesn't perform well at majors narrative.
He said, but you know what? I can't tell what's funnier. Is Calvin never winning or only winning this event or something like that?
Yeah,
I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
I thought it would be funny.
Nope.
He hates it.
Okay.
I think
I was just reiterating for this show if they didn't hear it. I thought it would. I said on the preview show, I'm not sure what would be funnier if Calvin doesn't ever win a major, or if the only one he ever wins is the wooded major that happened to be not in the woods. Although, considering how this event played out, I would not have even thought of it that way anyways, because it was kind of sick.
It played very tough. Yeah, it played out great.
Turns out just the right amount of wind makes disc golf awesome.
Wind and OB.
When there's OB, like tucked baskets and a little wind, it doesn't get any better than that. You've got people staring down putts like they're going to die.
I'm not like 100% with your narrative that you made, but just you've been so strong on it that like I don't want to ever see it budge.
That's fair.
The Calvin thing? I don't really know that I was big on the Matty O will never win thing.
No, you're big on the Calvin thing.
Yeah.
You're big on it. It's your favorite. It's in your Instagram
he didn't win.
bio.
True. Now, at the top after round
Sounds
2,
like you might be the big.
I'm the marshal here, and I'm calling foot fault on your take.
All right.
Now at the top after round 2, tied with Paul, you have none other than the major hunter himself, Isaac Robinson.
Gosh dang.
On Friday during round 2, as Paul was spiraling, going 4 over in the last 8 holes, DGN cut to the shot of Isaac draining a big putt. And I could just see the confidence in his stride and that look in his eyes. And so I texted Trevor at 8:39 p.m. Eastern time Friday, timestamp. And I said, Isaac's winning this thing. And
I'd like to read all the other prediction takes you put out there, because Hunter lately has become the king.
I texted that. I have the
timestamp. It sounds like you also.
I don't know.
I screenshot it. I texted it. I tweeted it. It's out there.
I don't know that there's actually
Isaac's winning this.
Any other bad ones this week? But I don't know there was. But Hunter lately has been loving the early takes. I think just for this
one
moment,
of them's gonna come true, and there you go.
He got it though. He got it. He did.
He's not telling any lies.
I feel like he may have hit some other ones.
The other one was y'all were doubting if Isaac was going to make a crucial putt, and I was like, guys, there's no doubt this is in the heart.
Well, I only doubted it because he missed the previous one.
Dead in the heart. Well, the previous, we'll talk about it. We're gonna get through all of it.
Previous one was shorter.
No, the previous, we'll get through all of it. So. Sure enough, he stuck around in round 3.
Stick to the order.
1 stroke behind Sullivan Tipton going into the final round. Then in the final round, he just didn't really mess up in any significant way. He shot a bogey-free 7 under, included the layup to win on 18. So the final round, though, was anything but drama-free. So there was one point I tweeted about where the entire top 10 was within 2 strokes of Isaac. So at this point, Isaac was at 22 under.
There's like a million people
at 20. And to get into the top 10, you had to be at 20 under, which is Paul's magic number. So funny enough, if Paul just had played even par from hole 10, day 2 on to this point, he would have been 2 strokes
right
in the
in
lead.
the thick of it.
Which is just crazy to look at it that way. But the problem was everyone that was kind of in that mix, other than Andrew Marweed, was at least a few holes ahead of Isaac, and he just wasn't really giving room to them. You had Anthony Barello push, and so Anthony Barello was able to get into the clubhouse at 25 under.
Heck of a push.
So AB gets into the clubhouse at 25 under, while I believe Isaac was still on 15. I think Isaac was on 15 at 25 under as well.
So AB made his birdie putt, and then it was about 3 or 4 minutes later that Isaac missed his putt on 16.
Yeah, so Isaac had made a big-time birdie on 15 to get to 25. So now him and AB are tied, but AB's in the clubhouse. So Isaac has to score for the outright win. but you also now have Andrew Marweed within 2 of Isaac, kind of coming in to 17. So 16 is what Trevor's referencing. Isaac, that's the one with the big tree, right? Where Isaac had.
No, that was not the straddle one. This was a
Okay,
straight
so that's
on
earlier.
putt.
So Isaac on 16 misses about a. They're calling them both 39. That one was probably closer to 33, 35.
On coverage, they called it 44, the second one.
Yeah,
the
I'm
first
saying the
one was
first
more
one.
like 35.
Yeah. So the PDGA
Did not
has
think he
them
was
both at
gonna
39.
miss.
So he misses that one on 16.
Caged it.
Then on 17, you now have Marweed within 2. Marweed's approach shot comes to 25 feet for birdie, which if you know anything about Andrew Marweed, that's in the basket.
He's the best putter on tour.
Like 97% C1X putting for a season. Like this dude doesn't miss. So now you know Marweed's at 24 in your head. Isaac's at 25. Isaac throws a great approach shot, but just juices it.
Well, he threw his drive to begin with about as far as I've ever seen him throw a disc.
He was pumped up on
He was
adrenaline.
pumped up. Yeah.
And so it goes over the hill, down, and he has, like, I agree with Trevor, probably outside 40.
Up the hill, too.
Uphill. So
Yeah. It was a good look for C2.
very tricky putt coming up. If he missed it, it's basically going to be almost, it feels like guaranteed one-stroke game going into 18. Not to mention he would have to birdie 18 to beat AB because he'd be tied with AB going into 18. He stepped up and threw this putt with like less than 5 seconds.
I
Like,
literally
the dude-
looked away for a second, then I heard chains and was like, what?
The dude just didn't even think about it and just drilled it into the heart of the chains.
It was so center.
Uphill, and he big putted Andrew Marweed because now Marweed has a level 25-foot putt. Like, again, never missing that. Bricked it. Missed it. He taps out, so he stays at 23. Isaac now is at 26, meaning he just has to par hole 18, which hole 18 is not an it's an easy par based on like what has to be executed, but with the wind and all the OB, a lot can go wrong.
Yeah, you still have to throw a shot. Like, you're going to have to get kind of cozy with the water to some degree, especially with him, throwing the backhand. Like, and we saw the wind kind of dropping. I will say where his drive landed was a little better. He wasn't having to attack it. A lot of people attacking it from the front.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of problems with the wind. It seemed like he didn't have as much. But when Isaac gets that self-belief in these majors, the basket it looks like the size of a sailboat to him, and he just points and throws it there.
I'll say even
he's unbeatable.
in typical Isaac major form, if you watched only him play hole 18 that on like this final time, you would have thought that it was just not like, oh, this is the easiest par of all time because he just threw a good
And that
drive.
tee shot was
had a little
so good.
a chippy tee shot or chippy second shot to like just outside the circle, laid it up, tapped. It looked like the most stress-free par of all time.
Yeah.
He
But,
makes
like,
everybody else look foolish.
We had
He
watched
does.
so
He
many
does.
players struggling with this hole. Like the whole, it was so windy on 18. So like you had all
lot
this
of wind.
context for how hard it was, and then you just watched him step up, and it was like he wasn't even affected by it at all. And he just
He's a
did his
gamer,
typical Isaac Robinson major thing, where it just looked like this dude's not gonna mess up ever.
Yeah.
And so now his last 4 wins are all majors.
Has Isaac ever, I'd be curious to know, has he ever lost a major in which he had a final round lead at any point?
I have no idea.
I feel like when he gets control of a major in the final round, it's like
It never feels like he's gonna give it up.
curtains. I mean, because
if he can coast, he's the best at coasting in the whole world.
But that's the funny thing is his first major though was at WR, where he had to. That was an attack course. Like, because I agree, he's awesome in these situations where it's windy, guys are throwing themselves out of the tournament because they're getting aggressive, and he's allowed to just play safe and play smart and get his birdies when he needs them, but then just like make the right shots. But then like also he went out at WR at the time where he just lit the course ablaze. R.I.P. WR.
Yeah,
he
how dare you,
like
Jeff.
he dominated that course. So like he has.
But that's also a home course for him.
It is. But as I'm saying, like the guy can score when he needs to score. It's just so fascinating.
It
These
is funny
major
'cause, like,
champions. He's just
whenever
cool and collected.
At Ivy, that final round, he really did make everybody else out there look silly.
Yeah.
Because, like, why are you throwing all these silly shots?
Yeah. Oh, just a
do
little
this.
putter here
Yeah,
and then just throw it over here.
I don't know what happens at majors because he won Idlewild back in 2022.
It is so fascinating.
And then every other win since then has been a major.
4 majors.
He's won Champions Cup twice
He's
and
got
Worlds
more.
twice.
He has more than.
He just tied Will Schustrick and Nate Doss.
He has more
for
than
all-time
Cannon.
majors.
Only has 3.
Yeah, he's now on the. Nate Doss had this line he said probably 30 times, which was this win took him from a great player to legendary. Doss
He
loved it. I don't know if Doss was just trying to make sure everyone knew he's a legendary player because he also has 4 majors, but
Yeah, that's funny.
regardless, he kept saying
Legendary.
it. But it is true to a certain extent of like the guy's only been fully touring for a few years. He's already picked up 4 majors. He's still young, it makes you question, like, how many more times is he going to do? Is he about to go win his third Worlds in Europe? You can't bet against him.
What he's doing at these majors and the way he's sealing up these tournaments, he is creating a fear. Like, he's creating like a thing where he's gonna have this aura. If that guy's on your lead card, like final round of a major, you've got to be worried about him. Like, it's got to get in your head of like, okay, he's not going to make any mistakes, so I better not. Like, that's the way he plays these rounds. Like, he just doesn't make the big mistake.
I think it's almost like when his timing's on, he is one of, if not the best players in the world.
I think he's the most accurate backhand player
and
out
so
there.
It's more like if he's on a final round lead card at a major, it means he's having one of those weekends. Because if his timing's off, he's not going to have one of those weekends.
Yeah.
And then his putt, it just gets into this mode where, like, I was shocked he missed the one on 16.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt so unlike Isaac, but like it didn't even matter. 17, all the pressure in the world, basically game-winning putt.
He's a baller, dude.
Doesn't even think about it, just drains it.
He's a baller.
And Latitude 64 is so happy right now because this was the bet they made.
They said he's going to win majors. They got one right away.
This was the bet they made. They started branding him alongside Kristin, and it's like, this all works if the guy keeps winning majors. And here you go.
I hope he got a nice bonus from Latitude for that.
Well, he got a nice paycheck from Latitude for this contract in general.
What was his contract, by the way?
I think he gets like 120 something a year.
Was it 120?
I think it's 125 a year.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I was trying to remember yesterday.
That'll do the trick.
My wife said,
I can find
"Is he rich?" And I was like, "Well, no. Like, he just got his first big deal, and like he's doing all right now. Like, he's doing six figures now." But I'm like, he's not the richest of them, so I couldn't remember what.
He's comfy. 3-year deal. Let me see.
Yeah,
it might be 175,000 a year guaranteed.
No, he's doing really well.
He's projected to make north of 300 a year
he's
with
rich.
sales incentives and bonuses.
That'll do the trick.
Yeah, that'll do the trick. He's rich.
Yeah, so he's doing just fine out there.
He's rich.
He's doing just fine out there. Not to mention he made what?
Considering his earnings, he'll probably do 250 grand this year.
Because
he's doing pretty well.
Well, they're projecting him to be at 300 from Latitude alone per year.
All right, so he might do like 400 grand this year.
Because I think this tournament alone,
he probably buy like a pretty good used truck.
Yeah, he's made 16 grand this tournament alone.
Yeah.
So he's already.
You know what's funny? I looked at a list on Statmando. They have like
he's already at $24,000 earned this year.
So Statmando has their like money earned from. They have like their major champions, and one of the categories they have is money earned from wins in majors, only from wins, and like. Ricky is very far down that. Like, I think Isaac's like 74K and Ricky's at like 38K because Ricky never won.
He hasn't won the modern era.
And he didn't win a U.S. title. Feldberg only has one more major than Rick and has won significantly more money, like 60 to his 38, because he has that U.S. title and that pays so well. And it has forever. I think Feldberg has 2 U.S. titles.
That's Ricky's problem.
So
is
he's gotten paid twice from
Ricky
that
hasn't won since 2017. So, like, the
purses
have just went
well, and he was winning.
ballistic
Yeah, he was
since then.
winning world title. Like I said, if you won USDGC once
it
or
was
twice,
pretty
like,
consistently
that was
20.
that was like that's been 20. But worlds and then like whatever other random majors he won, like
Players Championship or whatever he won.
Yeah, there wasn't huge purses. So,
but yeah, I mean, Isaac. They were saying it on the broadcast. They're like
Pro Tour for now.
They're like we get guilty of it, and I get guilty of it too. Of like you let Isaac lull you to sleep. You go into a major week and you kind of like, if this was a wooded major, I'd been talking all about Isaac. I don't even know if I mentioned him.
No, this is
on
not,
the preview
This was
show.
not the course that people would have been
That's
thinking
what I'm saying.
about it.
You let him lull you to sleep and you forget who he is. Because I think he also, every interview after is like, I just didn't expect to win this week. I mean, my game kind of felt good, whatever. And it's like, you just kind of forget he exists at going into certain tournaments.
Yeah, you got it.
And I'm not gonna let it happen again.
This is probably
Sexton said it, and I agree
because he's not flashy.
He is now. I think him and Gannon Burr are my 2 picks of like they're gonna duke it out at Worlds.
I would say you can't really ignore him at majors anymore because I think one thing too, like if you watch him play enough, it's like on many holes he's just playing a different hole. Like he's throwing such a different shot, and a lot of times because he's just like, hey, the backhand works, we're throwing the backhand.
Well,
so there are times. Like, because I think it was 16's tee shot where, like, there's the Mando far down on the right that, like, as throwing a backhand shot is pretty darn hard to do because you have to delay the turnover on a pretty narrow shot. And, like, he was able to navigate that. But
I think
everybody else just
it might have been 14, the one with the big tree where he missed the putt. Like, even that one.
That quick flex.
Even that one.
AB switched to that though.
Yeah, like even that one, he had to like pull it tight and have a much tighter line. But like when you're Isaac, that gap looks massive because he's not missing it ever
in the Georgia woods. Man.
But that's the thing too is you look at it and it's one thing if like Champions Cup he has 2 titles. So I think when the history books look back, it might be like, oh, he can win at certain types of courses. He's won at like every type of course. He's taken on WR Jackson. He's taken on New London.
He annihilated New London.
And then you go over to Ivy
Shredded
Hill,
Ivy.
which shouldn't have been his type of course. And now he's done it at a golf course, which also shouldn't be his type of course. And then GMC, where he won his first Worlds, is very well balanced between woods and open.
He's a beast.
And so it's like he's done it at every type of course he can. So there's not a like, oh, when majors go to the wood, think of Isaac. It's just when there's an M next to the name, think of Isaac. I also wonder if Isaac and Ezra are the first brothers ever to win an Elite Series / major in the same year. Gotta be.
Who else would be on that list?
Cam and Steve Rico. I mean, I don't think either of them did it. Like, they gotta be the only siblings. That's crazy.
They're the disc golf brothers.
What are in those genes? You know?
I don't know.
What surprised you?
I don't think they were wearing
anything
jeans,
else
Line.
surprised you about this tournament?
Surprise.
Finishing places, whatever.
I mean, I was.
Were you troubled by anything?
Yeah, was I surprised
sorry,
or was I
I guess I
troubled?
should clarify.
Were you shocked?
I'm trying to think if anything really stood out to me. So, I mean, some of the performances, like I think a lot of the performances you would see that maybe were jumped out a little bit, like Marweed and Sully, for example. Like, I'm not shocked at that because I think it was a forehand friendly course, and so like that didn't surprise me. I think I saw a lot out of the leaderboard that I did expect. I mean, the most shocking, like honestly, what Paul did to throw away that tournament was the most shocking thing that happened. Like the most surprising thing is where the scores just ended up holding.
Yeah.
And it was the best disc golf event of the season.
Oh, easily.
Like,
it was incredible.
So you know what? I think I went in kind of pessimistically to this venue, and I still agree with some of the things I said. My kind of end opinion was, were there still a lot of tee shots that were thrown out into space? And I'm like, I have no idea where that is landing in context. No clue. All the time. That was happening a lot. That was frustrating. But when you got to time to approach the basket or time to throw a putt, and there's a little bit of wind out there, I think the wind was a very big factor in making this tournament entertaining. It rocked. It rocked. And Pirate Island is awesome. That's a cool name.
I did like how I felt like scoring-wise, this held true to what I imagined the identity of this major to be. Because honestly, the most off-brand of this major was the first year at WR.
There was bogeys available I'd say there still was bogeys available everywhere. It honestly, it kind of felt like was USDGC a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why I enjoyed it so much. And yeah, the whole low ceiling thing, I'm not a huge fan of because I do think there's so much 50-50 action with disc going up into trees. I mean, you saw it countless times, a disc going into the tree limbs.
I did notice a lot less rollers this year than I remember historically.
Still a lot.
I mean, AB threw one of the farthest rollers of all time.
Yeah, and then the next day turned a tree into mulch.
But I mean, he threw one roller that I think landed at like 500 feet and then rolled out to like 7 something.
Yeah, it was a 700-foot roller.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, the ceiling thing I still don't love because I think there's so many shots that get up into the trees and then it's like, will it get hit? Will it not? And so I think that's not my favorite. But I think with this just is like, I'm glad that the course I don't think really got slandered all weekend because people were so invested in the golf. It ended up playing really well. And I wouldn't like if there were. If this was like a Worlds venue, like if they brought Worlds out to Cali and this was like the open venue at Worlds, I'd take that.
Yeah, I think
like I think it honestly hopefully will lock more people into OTB Open if that's what they continue to run there going forward because it was a good showcase for the venue overall.
Yeah, one thing that surprised me, I got to shout out is Andrew Presnell.
Oh my gosh, I'm
hung around.
He's a dog. Like Presnell, like. Everybody was like, oh, he got lucky at the last Champions Cup. Like, this is like, this would be normal Presnell. Shout out to Presnell. Did he make top 10?
Yeah, came in 8th place.
He jumped himself into the top 10, man, and like defended that title as best as he could. Like, respect to Presnell for that performance.
Yeah, I mean, round 1, when he was on lead card, he came out a little flat at 4 under. But then
everybody was waiting for him to take like 40th and be like,
missed the cut,
like,
whatever. But he came in 8th place. He got to that 20 under mark.
Love that for Presnell.
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised.
Also,
great performance.
Ben Callaway has the smoothest 500 feet of distance that exists.
He's got so much distance.
The dude, and you get a look at his arms and you can see what's going on there. He's jacked,
and he's lanky. He's jacked and
lanky.
Yeah,
he's got good wingspan. But the dude just reaches back and throws these casual hyzer flips that, like, if I threw at that speed or what it's perceived to be that speed, it would go 200 feet and then just flips out there 500 feet.
I did like there were several times where they were talking about like, oh, the water carrier on this hole, you got to throw at least 400 feet.
Yeah.
And I was like looking at it and thinking of like, it was like when we went out to Wild Horse and we got to that like hole that everyone has an eagle look at, and you and I threw and we couldn't even clear the green. And I was just like, I think it'd be so funny to go out to this course and like step up to some of these shots that like everyone's clearing this easily. And we would just throw our heart out and just be middle of the water.
Well, I mean, a great example of that was even at we went out to Fountain Hills, hole 1. And it's like, we could clear it, but like, we're not throwing a big old wide hyzer to get there. We're flipping it up.
It just, you watch it and you don't perceive the distance. And then they said like, oh, okay, it's from the shortest point, it's 400 feet to carry this water.
It would be awesome to get.
They all have this distance?
Yeah, it would be very cool to get, and this is, I think this will happen eventually in our sport. Like, I think this is reasonable to happen, but to have, not shot tracer, but just to be able to have the speed of the throw, carry of the disc kind of things, like that would be sick to be like, oh, so that way you really can, Isaac ripped that drive on 17 and you're watching the number go up. It carried 460 or whatever.
Central Coast used to always have the speed of the throw.
They did.
When
they were doing the miles per hour, which like that's cool, but like really disc carry would be awesome.
The miles per hour doesn't really.
It doesn't always translate.
Anything.
Yeah. You gotta be very familiar with tech disc to learn.
Yeah.
To know like, oh, that means a lot.
Right.
But all right, it's time for now that we're an hour and 10 minutes into this bad boy, it's time for the fan favorite segment, Trevor's Trivia, right after these messages.
Hit us with it, Trevor.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Drop my phone.
Hunter's trying to hit them with it.
So we've played the game before. How old are they? Using what limited internet data we have. Well, I found a category that has even more limited internet data, and some of it, who knows how much of it is true? Because a lot of it comes from Wikipedia. How tall are they?
Oh, okay. No.
How tall are they?
This is gonna be a tough one.
Most of these players,
I feel like it won't be. We've seen a lot of them in person.
Now, here's what I'll say is, I like looking through these heights. They all sound realistic. So, like, it's not like any of these are egregious. Most of them are pulled from Wikipedia. Some of them from like old player profile pages on sponsor websites or tours or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anywhere that this was posted was like an official listing of some sort. So the name of the game is. You guys are going to guess to the inch, like foot, inch, how tall these following players are. And there is, I believe, 10. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Within these 10, you're going to try and stay within 10 inches total.
Okay.
So you get like an inch per player.
This
I expect you to do pretty well at this, though.
I
think we got this.
I'm terrible
An
at this.
inch per player?
I wanted to be difficult. Because, like, most of the... I think there's quite a few you will probably get on the dot.
I got my height wrong on my own driver's license.
That's tough.
I realized I went to get my driver's license renewed, got to get real ID, right? And went in, and they just, like, on there asked me my height, eye color, all of that. And so I just wrote it all down. And then I wrote 5'10" for myself.
Okay.
And then when I got home, I looked at my driver's license I currently have, and I was currently listed at 5'11". And then I was like, how tall am I actually?
How tall are you actually?
I think I'm 5'11".
Oh.
I didn't measure myself again because I'm like, who actually cares? But I'd like being 5'10" more than 5'11".
Yeah.
But yeah.
How come?
I don't know.
Okay. Even number?
Yeah, it just feels if I'm 5'11", like I might as well be 6 feet.
See,
I better grow.
I've always liked being 5'11" because nobody lies
like you
about
and I
being
are the same height.
5'11". I'm definitely taller than you.
I feel like we're the same height. I don't remember. We've measured
marginally.
each other.
Marginally. Let me be
if
clear.
you're 5'11", I'm probably 5'11".
Yeah, there's a chance that we are both 5'11". Because I don't know. Yeah, I haven't been measuring.
Well, according to my driver's license, 5'10".
And I think I'm 5'10" on my driver's license. I've updated it since I was in high school.
I think I'm 5'9" on my driver's license, but I think I'm like closer to 5'10".
You're like more like 6'2".
I did think it was
I'm
funny
like 62.
that I could put whatever I wanted. They just handed me a paper and I could just write it.
It's actually kind of funny. You could just write whatever you
should
wanted.
have wrote like 6
They might come back to bite you in a legal situation.
TSA stares at you and is like, "That's not you."
Just write 6'1".
They're like, "Wait, I'm looking up at 7 right now and I don't see you."
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't look like you.
That's a light fixture. All right. Anyways, first pro, Paul Macbeth. How tall is he?
I think he's 5'8".
Bingo.
Yeah.
Perfect.
He's told us his height before. I knew that.
Okay.
One.
James Conrad.
He's pretty tall.
I don't think he's crazy tall. I'm gonna go 6'1" is kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
6'3".
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's not good.
You're 2 inches off there.
By same thing, I mean I was thinking
We're
6'3".
average out. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Paige Pierce.
Shorter than Paul? Yes.
Maybe the same height as Paul.
I'm gonna say
5'5" to 5'8", somewhere in there. So maybe we go like 5'7".
I'm 5'6".
You're 5'6"?
I'm at 5'6".
Oh, 5'6".
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with 5'6".
She is 5'5".
Okay.
Okay.
Good job.
That's fine.
Still on pace. Katrina Allen.
You lost
I think she's a little bit taller than Paige. I think she's
so
a
let's go 5'6" again. Maybe 5'7"?
5'7".
5'7".
She's 5'4". She's very short.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Interesting. I mean, I've never stood near her, so I don't know.
Okay, you guys need to lock in. Gannon Burr.
6'3".
How tall is Silas?
Silas, how tall are you?
6'5".
You're 6'5"? Okay. 6'3". I feel good with 6'3".
You think he's shorter?
I think he's shorter
I think
than Silas.
him and Silas is tall. True.
Silas was even taller than Big Germ.
Is Gannon taller than Brody?
I would say no. I think 6'3".
It's hard to tell because he does perspective gymnastics on you because he's so skinny.
Yeah, it is.
So he looks tall, and he is tall.
So maybe 6'4"?
6'4".
I don't think he's as tall as Silas.
6'4".
You guys aren't giving enough credit. He's 6'5".
He is as tall
He's
as
every
Silas.
bit as 6'5".
He probably fudged the numbers.
Yeah, true. Where'd you get
That's
this
probably like
information
his- that's
from?
probably like his
So here's the
basketball
funny thing.
lineup.
He is listed on Wikipedia as 6'6", but I've asked him in person recently. He's 6'5".
Because like that
he
used to
skipped
be
it,
like you would always put like every once in a while they would give us like put your basketball for lineup, put your basketball height in,
Yeah,
and
well,
you're
it's
always a few inches taller. We had what was funny for one of them is we had a point guard that was probably every bit of 5'9", and we just listed our shortest guard as 6 foot.
That's
So like
funny.
when they were like looking at the team, they're like, this Timberlake team, they're putting in
They're
their whole
monsters.
starting line 6'3", like 6 foot and above, and they have one 6'8" guy, and our tallest guy was like 6'4", 6'5". But
Intimidation
that's
factor.
funny.
Intimidation.
Isaac Robinson.
He's like the same height, 5'11". I think he's Trevor's height. I think they're the same person.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking he was 5'11".
That's correct.
Yeah.
We're like the exact height. Okay, 4 more to go, and you're at 7 inches right now.
Okay.
I think we got this, Hunt.
Eagle McMahon.
A little shorter than
6'2".
Yeah, I was thinking that 6'2".
6'3".
I was
Okay.
thinking 6'3".
Then
still
why
got-
did you say you were thinking 6'2"?
still got
Your thing with the basketball team intimidated
You've
me.
got
like
2
that.
to spare here with 3
He
to
wasn't
guess.
a sports guy.
Ricky Wysocki.
6'1".
I think
maybe?
he's like sneaky tall. I think he's 6'2".
Okay, I'm fine with 6'2".
He's 6'4".
I said sneaky tall.
But you also said 6'2".
He does.
Come on,
He is,
come on.
I feel like Ricky kind of is hunched over a little bit. All right, you guys lost. The final 2 are Simon Lizotte. What would you guess?
6'3".
6'2".
He's 6, only 6 foot. Remember, we said that when we saw him. Like, he's not that tall. You guys don't remember these things.
No, why would I remember people's height?
I don't know.
I just know if someone's
No, I
taller than me or
remember
not.
his-
Silly me.
I remember how tall he looks, but I don't know
All
what
I know-
number that is.
All I know is, he's taller than me, or he's not as tall
Yeah,
as me. That's
yeah.
all I know. Or we're about the same height. Those are my 3. If you would
You
have played
are
that,
about the same height.
If you would have played that,
I'll tell you, my honest-
Simon was definitely taller than me.
My
He is
honest,
by an inch, probably an inch
I
and
could
a
have
half.
told you that.
my honest interpretation of people's height is either it doesn't exist, height doesn't exist, or I'm like, holy crap, you're tall. Those are the only 2 things. It either doesn't matter or holy crap, you're tall. That's
You
the
ever
only.
think somebody's short?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Either
Yeah.
holy crap, you're tall, or holy crap, you're short. Other than that, doesn't exist.
Yeah, if you're
Then-
just kind of in the average range,
then I don't think about
That's
it.
pretty much the first thing I think of when I see
The only
somebody.
I know
Yeah.
you're a big tall
I
guy.
size
You're a big
him up.
height guy.
The only
size him
thing,
up.
like if you're close to my height, but you carry yourself with a certain confidence, you're taller than me.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. If we're like both 5'10" and we're looking eye to eye, but you have your shoulders back and you got some confidence to
Maybe-
you, I perceive you as taller.
Maybe
than me.
afterwards we need to measure
Mine it,
like
other
a
way.
doorway like you do with
Other
kids.
way, if I like look at you, we're eye to eye, and you're like you don't have that much confidence, you're shorter than me. Like that's that feeling.
Have more
So that's where like
confidence.
Simon
Carry
towered
yourself
over.
We should
me.
put that in an inspirational podcast.
That felt
clip.
like Simon. I felt like Simon was easily 3-4 inches taller than me.
How do you hold yourself?
Well, it's
I feel like I hold myself pretty shrunk down.
Yeah. Oh.
what are you talking about? Posture.
I don't feel like I like walk. I don't feel like I command something in a room. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
get
there's
what
some
you're
guys
saying.
that walk
Yeah.
in a room and you're like, that's the alpha.
I like to approach people as meek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gentle and lowly.
Gentle and lowly. Exactly.
Manufacturer's
That's why I
Cup.
hunch.
That's what I like. Manufacturer's Cup update.
Update me.
So this is what's exciting here is the teams are now based on this year. So the teams have now updated. Before we were using last year's for the first 5 event. Now that we're at event 6, we're using this year's. So players like Adam Hamez now count for Discraft, which really helped them
Team Discraft is still the
because
GOAT.
they dominated. They got 70.8 points this week, significantly increasing their lead on second place, who only had 12 points. And Andrew Presnell and Ben Calloway got into the top 10 and didn't count for Discraft. So they just keep going.
And Paige didn't count.
And Paige did not count for
Yeah.
Discraft as well.
Also didn't count.
But Holland did, and they were still able to get in there.
We had a
So,
fun week there where we're like, ooh, Discmania
Holland.
might make it interesting.
Latitude
No, they're
64
not.
took a stronger hold of third place versus Innova with a strong week driven by Isaac's win and Kristin's second. And DGA had their best week of the year at 27
Shout out
points.
Sully.
So,
Couldn't putt.
and Andrew
Been
Marweed,
there.
also in DGA.
Yeah. DGA, man.
And Katrina Allen got in the top 10, also in DGA.
Go DGA.
27 points for them. So
Goodbye, Hurricane.
really the big lineup switches. You have Adam Hammonds and Ezra Aderhold were bumped into Discraft's top team, removing Chris Dickerson and Aaron Gossage. Kat Murch was bumped into Innova's top team, removing Evelina Solonen. Silas Schultz was bumped into Discmania.
Whoa, what? Oh, there's only
This
two.
is based on points.
Ooh.
There's only 2 FPO.
How that's probably gonna bite.
And then Silas Schultz was bumped into Discmania's top team, bumping out Alden Harris. So those are the rosters that
Silas has
switched
been
around.
okay this year.
And then pick'em results. Listen, we had Ricky, Paul, and Eagle on MPO.
We should have been in the driver's
We looked
seat.
dominant for 80% of this tournament, and we ended up losing 28 points to Tour Life because
That's
they
not your
had
fault.
Gannon Burr, Kristen, Paige Pierce.
Yeah.
Who
so
I need to watch
lucky.
the tape on why they landed
So
on Paige
lucky.
Pierce.
So lucky.
And then we both had Katrina Allen. We both had Eagle McMahon.
Thank goodness we blocked with the Katrina Allen pick.
We picked Rebecca Cox. Thought that'd be a good pick. She came in 55th.
Like her worst finish probably by a lot this year.
Let's actually look at.
like she's been like, what is
I think
going
there's
on?
insider trading
We're
going on.
cursed. We are cursed.
It's
I think
crazy.
it's insider trading.
Rebecca Cox this year so far has
God.
went 8th at Supreme Flight, 8th at Waco, 9th at Open at Austin, 3rd at Jonesboro, 28th at MVP,
Oh.
13th at Kansas City Wide
Yeah,
Open.
so she had like
55th
double.
at Champions
Yeah.
Cup.
You guys should have looked at the trend.
We did.
She
Paige
played-
Pierce was trending down as well.
Yeah.
And Paige Pierce hadn't come in the top 10 all year.
Yeah.
At least Rebecca Cox was living in the top 10 at the
It's
beginning
a
of the year.
joke. It's a joke, isn't it?
Because that made up pretty much
Yeah.
their whole lead was Paige versus Rebecca.
Yeah. Whatever.
Ridiculous.
We'll get. There's going to be a get back. Listen, this is only.
We're down
That's only the
61
first quarter.
We're down 62 points.
That's the first quarter.
And
there's
there's a lot
there's
to come
4
back.
quarters.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
There's a
4
lot to
quarters
happen.
of fury.
A lot that can
Flames
still happen.
quarter.
So, all right. To wrap up the show, it's time for the Silas Selects.
Ooh.
What is in this bag?
Whoop, whoop, whoop,
What did
whoop,
he
whoop.
do? That crazy boy.
I'm kind of over this.
Oh, what the
I'm just
heck?
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna go with the Discraft Venom.
It
You said that way too confidently. I don't like it.
it just it requires so much emotional
I'm gonna take
like
the passion.
energy
All
from
right, we have
me.
the Venom Passion.
I think it's a putter. And I'm gonna stick. And I like where you guys are at with Discraft. I'm gonna say that it's a Luna. Is it a putter?
Taco. This guy's good at his job.
He's really
I just don't
good.
get it. I
He's
don't get it.
very good.
I'm gonna put a hidden camera up
does he
front and
do
watch
it?
it next time.
oh,
Then I'll get him.
that
would
true.
be-
Cheating does the trick.
Cheating
All right.
would do the trick.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up.
250
Hopefully-
grand. That'll do the trick.
Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. We'll talk to you again in the next episode.
We love podcasts.